in the series that Craig McGlasson is going to be delivering today about fashion, putting on the clothing of Jesus. So we're so glad you're here today. And for those of us who are in the building, we're doing a party in the parking lot today. And you're not missing out because you can also join us second and fourth Sunday of the entire summer. We decided to enjoy the summer weather, go out, have some ice cream in the parking lot, play some games, have some music. If you're around on the fourth Sunday, join that. We're also doing midweek, not week, but the first week in July. We're doing outdoor midweek worship. So we hope you can join us for that, and thank you for tuning in today.
Good morning, friends. Welcome to Kensington. I'm so glad you're here with us today for the third and final week of our summer fashion series. I'm Cliff Johnson, one of the teaching pastors here, and clearly the most fashionable teaching pastor on staff. Sorry, Steve Andrews, you came in a close second. The rest of you, Craig, Joel, Andrew, Justin, Jeremiah, you really need to step up your game. We are so excited to tell you about our Hope Water Project event that's coming up. Here's Aaron Brissett to give you more information.
Hi, my name is Erin, and I'm here to tell you that the Hope Water Project 5K and Fun Run is back. We thought we'd give you a little dose of 2021 and say, things may look a little different this year, but the only thing that's different this year is we're running later in the summer than normal. What's that? Normal? That's right. Normalcy will be brought to you this year by the Hope Water Project. For those of you who are new to the Hope Water Project, we exist to raise money and awareness to bring clean water to our friends, the Pokot in Western Kenya. Hope Water has installed more than 130 wells since 2012. These wells don't just bring clean water to the Pokot, because where there is water, there is hope, there is life, there is a future. And where these things exist, there is Jesus. This is our 7th annual 5K, and maybe the most special yet because we're gathering again as a community. And this year, we truly appreciate the gift this is. This event is awesome because everyone can participate. There's no need to be an Olympian. You, your family, friends, coworkers, and neighbors are invited back to normal to run or walk in person or virtually, if you still prefer, at the end of this July. This year, Traverse City will have their own 5K event on the evening of July 21st. Metro Detroit campuses will be running Saturday morning, July 31st at the Troy campus. We encourage you this year to BYOP. Don't know that one? Bring your own picnic. Bring a chair, bring a blanket, bring some food, and plan to spend a few hours hanging out, playing games, listening to music, and meeting awesome people in this community. At this time, in-person registrations will be limited to 500 participants. These spots will go fast, so reserve your spot and start fundraising today. If you aren't called to run or walk, we get it. please feel free to donate to the Hope Water Project General Fund. The goal for this year's 5K is 3 wells. To donate, register, or for more information, check us out at kensingtonchurch.org/5K. Hope Water is thrilled to be bringing back this amazing community. See you at the starting line.
So again, you can find more information about the 5K events at kensingtonchurch.org/5K. And I'll give anyone $1,000 of Danny Cox's money if you can beat Andrew Kim in the 5K. You should probably start training right now. I'd also like to tell you about our new series. I'm so excited about this. It starts next weekend. It's called Shaking the Family Tree. We're looking at the surprising ancestors of Jesus. If we trace back his lineage, we don't find perfect and pious people, not even solid citizens. God chose to include 4 special women with troubling stories as ancestors of our Savior for a reason. Join us for this 4-week series as we take an honest and maybe jarring look at the family tree of Jesus. Okay, back to our services now. Let's take a walk down the runway and see what God has for us today.
Good morning, Kensington. Let's go ahead and stand up as we worship and we celebrate everything about Jesus, about who he is and what he's done for us. So you make the darkness. You make the darkness run and hide. You bring the broken back to life. Only you can, only you can. You set me free from every chain. You fill my heart with songs of praise. Only you can, only you can. Jesus, you're the only reason that I'm even breathing. I am wide awake. My heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to your rhythm, to your rhythm. Every beat is calling, every beat is calling out to me. Yeah. You left the glory of your throne to bring this runaway back home. Only you can, only you can. You give me love, you give me life, you keep me dancing through the night. Only you can, only you can. Oh, my heart beats only for your glory. My hands reach up for you to hold me. My soul sings, Father, you are holy. My feet dance to rhythm, to rhythm. who could carry that kind of weight. It was my dream till I met you. Yeah, come on. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my dream till I met you. Come on, you say it. You call my name, yeah, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You call my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Come on, let's get those hands going. Let's celebrate this morning. And now your mercy has saved my soul. Oh, your freedom is all that I know. Oh, the omega. Jesus, when I met you, you called my name. I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my name. I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. When we sing, I needed rescue. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan. Now you call me a citizen of heaven. Yeah. When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future. My eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You call my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day.
Woo is right. Dang. Man. You know what's so fun is to watch the progression of some of you on a Sunday morning, because some of you just like to sing. Like I could just hum. Me, not even them. I could just hum and you'd be clapping hands and into it. Some of you, you're more my personality. You're a little stoic at first, and you got to kind of warm up. But I watch you do this first. And then you start bobbing your head. And if you get really crazy, you might even do this once or twice. Like, it's just awesome. There is, I was thinking about this song, that line, every beat, help me out, how's it go? Every beat is calling out a new song. Yes, yeah, that's the line. Every beat's calling out a new song. I was paying attention. There is, over the course of the pandemic, because of all of us being inside, there were so many places on our planet that were quiet, like unnaturally quiet, that there are actually places, this is a true story, where scientists were monitoring birds that were starting to sing new songs. Because of the quietness, there was something different that started coming out of certain flocks of birds. And I just think, I thought of that when we were singing that song, because I think sometimes, I wouldn't even say sometimes, I would say that's what Jesus does for us, is he draws a new song out of us. Some of you, like I'm just curious, I'm gonna put you on the spot just a little bit for a minute. How many of you would just be honest enough to admit that, I don't know, a year ago, 10 years ago, whenever your journey with Jesus began, you would have never imagined yourself in a church singing with a group of people to a God you can't physically see? Anybody would acknowledge that? There's a new song he drew out of you. But it's not even just in song. For some of us, the new song that he has drawn out of us or is drawing out of us is to no longer sing bitterness, but joy, depression, but enthusiasm, anger, but hopefulness. God brings a new song out of us, and I just love that, and I love the way that you guys bring us into that moment. So thank you. So good morning, Orion. Those of you in the room, those of you online, so glad that you're here with us today, checking in. A couple of things I just want to acknowledge before we dive into the morning. Yesterday was an incredible day, partnering up with our K-Friends Ministry. That is a group of our adults with special needs. And they had a huge baptism yesterday, thanks to Patrick Bell, who I think is usually here in the second service. He opened up his unbelievable piece of property and home. And there were, I believe, 14 individuals that made a profession yesterday of belief among their peers that there's a God, his name is Jesus, and they are convinced that he is wildly passionate about them. That's Patrick over there on the right. Yeah, so just an unbelievable day of celebration yesterday. You were with us. Anything you would add to that day?
No, yeah, we were. I was there, and it was awesome to see them celebrate giving their lives to, like, not only like when they were baptized, did they come out of that water just screaming and shouting, super excited? But then we got to eat afterwards, and we got to celebrate and worship. And there was one, I think his name was Chris. He was up there with me, and we were just jamming out. And it was just the most authentic, genuine place of worship that I've gotten to experience in a long time. Just getting to celebrate and enjoy their joy. I got to enjoy their joy. It was awesome.
Yeah. There's actually a picture, I don't know if it's one of the ones that made the rounds on the screen, but there's a picture of him, actually while you're worshiping, he's up front, kind of all alone. In the picture, you'd almost think he's the only one in the room, because it's just the two of you, and he's air guitaring, following along with you. So it's not gonna be a Sunday of true worship till one of you come up here and start air guitaring some Sunday. I'm just saying, it's gotta happen at some point. So anyways, we just want to celebrate that, our many volunteers that pulled that off, Patrick's generosity and just commitment to that community, and any of you that were a part of making that at any point in our history, making that group of our peers and our people and a part of our community feel valued and special. So, all right, here we go. So we are in week 3 of a series we started a few weeks ago with 3 verses and 1 idea. I want to take us back to the verses, and then I want to remind us of the idea, and then we're going to close it out today. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12 says this. This is the Apostle Paul writing. Originally, it was a letter that he wrote to one of the churches that he was a part of starting as a way of encouragement and instruction, as much to us as to them. Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves. This is the intentionality. We've talked about this all series. This is not just simply, hey, it might happen. He's saying you choose this. There's an idea in the Bible. It is a truth that we believe, that God takes our heart of stone and he transplants it with a heart of flesh when we put our faith in Jesus as resurrected Lord. But the thing is that even though we have this new heart, a heart of joy, a heart of passion, a heart of commitment, a heart of love, is that you have to choose to live out of that heart and not your old heart. So this is the idea that Paul is saying, this choice in this idea where he says, clothe yourself. This is the intentionality where he's saying, you can't give yourself a new heart. Jesus does that, but you can choose to live out of that heart. And so he says, with choice, clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Bear with one another and forgive one another if any of you have a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you, and over all of these virtues put on love, which binds them all together in perfect unity. Those are the 3 verses. Here's the one idea. The one idea is simply this. We said it last week and on week 1. It matters what you wear. Just help me out, say it with me. Say it matters what you wear. It matters what you wear. So Paul, the apostle who writes this, if you know his story, then you know he writes from deep conviction and understanding, personal understanding of the importance of what you clothe your inward self with, much like you clothe your outward self with. Paul, who was a Pharisee, he was the religious elite, he was varsity level in his era, who had learned how to do all of the right things on the outside but was dead on the inside until he met Jesus. So he knows the importance of what you need to clothe yourself with intentionality on the inside. So this morning, as we wrapped up the series, the title that we've been working with is The Runway, kind of staying in this idea of the summer wardrobe, what we clothe ourselves with. We were going with the runway, but I'm gonna actually change it up a little bit this morning. Is that all right? I mean, if you said it's not, I'm gonna do it anyway. So I wanna change it up just a little bit in our title and our direction, because it's occurred to me throughout the course of this series that equally important to what we put on is what we take off. Equally important to what we put on is what we also take off. There are things that Paul had to learn not just to begin to clothe himself in, but there are things he had to learn to take off as well. So if I was to change the title from Runway today, I would just call it Disrobe. Sounds a lot better than take your clothes off, so we'll go with Disrobe. So I love Michael's laugh. You can hear it over all of you guys. So that's where we're headed this morning. So just help me before I pray and lean in. Help me set a new trajectory for the morning. Just say this out loud with me. Say, it matters what you take off. All right, let me pray. Jesus, I am thankful for worship. I am thankful for the ability to allow our lungs to express in words an attempt to call out the greatness that is you. And so, God, to you, the great maker, the creator, the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning, the end, the everlasting, the Almighty, the one who sits on a throne but will one day stand again. And when he stands, will put all that is wrong right. To you we pray, and we acknowledge your presence, not just over all of creation, but even in a very tender, unique way here in this space, where you promise us that even if just two of us were here, you'd be here still, in a heavier way, in a unique way. And so, God, give us the grace and the mercy, give us the ability to know your presence today. And some of us are convinced, I know, like me, some of us are convinced you exist, but I also know, God, my heart and mind feel disturbed and disrupted by so many things in my own life at this moment. And so it's hard sometimes, even in my awareness of you, to feel like I'm close to you or you're close to me. And I just pray, God, you'd remove that. Your promise is if we draw near to you, you'll draw near to us. And so I'm here today because I want to be close to you. Many of us are here today because we want to be close to you. So come close to us. And some of us are here today because we want to know if there is a you, can we get close? And so, God, would you meet us wherever we're at this morning, convinced you exist, or maybe even convinced you don't, but wondering if you do. And God, I pray that the next little bit of our time, particularly as we open up this book that you have been so good as to hand down to us, you would help us to make sense of it, breathe through it as you once breathed into it. And with that breath, I pray, come off of these pages and into our hearts, our minds, and literally into the depths of our soul. And with these words, bring life to us, the life that is the light of all men, Jesus Christ. We acknowledge you, love you, and are listening for you today. In your name we pray, amen. So I want to take a minute, as we do every week, and just take up our offering. This week, I'm not going to forget like I often do and get reminded, so there'll be no giant flashing sign that you'll never see, but I see all the time in the back, offering dummy, so they don't say dummy. So this is such an important part of who we are as a community, is not just opening up our hearts to Jesus, not just opening up our minds to Jesus, but opening up our hands as well with all that we have. And it produces all that we do, and you make that happen. So I want to say two things. Thank you to those of you that are a part of this journey with us financially, and to those of you that aren't, we would love to have you join us. It is, I will say, in all honesty, it is one of the most important things that my wife and I do with our money is contribute to the cause of the gospel, the sake of the kingdom, through the efforts of Kensington. So all kinds of ways that you can do that if you want, all of which are obviously on the screen. For those of you that love to do something more tactile and physical, there's going to be some places that you can drop it off outside these doors before you leave the building today. So thank you very much. So there's a lot of things that we could talk about when we're talking about disrobing. A lot of things that we could come up with a list of things to say, hey, if you're going to put on all these things that Paul talks about, then there's a whole list that you could probably generate. Maybe you already even have. Maybe some of you are already trying to figure out where I'm going to even go this morning. But lists of things that we could generate that would go in the column of take these things off. I want to talk about just one this morning. One that I think there might be some of you that would go, this doesn't apply to me right now, but I think that maybe even particularly because of the unique time in history that we have been in, that this is going to apply to more of us than maybe it would generally apply to more of us. Is that I think that for a lot of us, one of the things that we are clothed in right now is stress, burden, weariness, as a result of a lot of the chaos, whether directly or indirectly, that has just been this last year. So I was thinking about all the different things that could qualify in our lives as stress or anxiety or weariness, and that is an endless list. Although that's an endless list, here's what's a shorter list, is when it manifests. Stress manifests one of two times for each of us. It's either during the day or it's at night. Like some of you do fine during the day, but at night, you just can't shut it off. Anybody want to admit it? Like your mind won't stop racing. You can't stop thinking. You're restless at night. When I was a kid, I hit this period of time where I swear it was months on end, I feel like, where for whatever reason, I was just wrestling with stress. I didn't realize, I think at the time that's what it was because I was too young. I remember in college, in one of my psychology courses, doing an entire semester on the power and the impact of dreams. And just realizing that the more that you dream and the more particularly that you remember your dreams, the more it's evidence of just kind of your internalness trying to work out anxiety and stress. So I don't know if you realize that, but the more vivid your dreams are, probably the more stressful life is for you. So this was a period of time where I just must have been under a lot of stress as a kid because I just had unbelievable nightmares. And I had this one that reoccurred every single night. I don't know if any of you have ever had something like this, but I would wake up in a terror almost every night. And I'm not kidding. Every night I go to bed and I know it was going to be the same dream. At some point in the middle of the night, my dream was I would fall out of my bed. I had a bunk bed. My little brother slept below. And I would fall out of the top bunk and I'd hit the floor and I'd crash through it. And then I'd crash through the next one. And then I'd crash through the next one. And it would just be this never-ending fall of hitting a floor and crashing through. And here's what was super weird. To this day, I can't figure it out. Maybe some of you in the room, you're a counselor, psychologist, and afterwards, if you know, you come tell me what this is. On every floor, there was this little barking black dog. Just as I'd go by, like everyone. It wasn't terrible. It was a fall that was terrible. I was like, I don't know what the dog's about. I think what I've come to understand in my adultness is that was a warning in my youth of the evil nature of cats. And so I have embraced that message now as an adult, as every God-loving individual should. Cats are evil. I feel like Jesus gave me that dream as a child. But some of you would say, no, I sleep great. I sleep good. It's during the day it messes with you. It's during the day you can't stay focused at work. You can't stay focused in the moments that you're in. You come home, you can't stay focused on your family. It's just the anxiety is all day long. So if you would say that's you, we actually found a spirit animal that may be a reflection of how you feel throughout the day. This is probably you throughout the day at general different points. I'm just gonna be honest, that is definitely me. One of the most repeated phrases by my wife lately is, stop growling. Apparently when I'm overwhelmed, I'm just like, She's like, why are you growling? So there you go, there's your spirit animal. It doesn't take much, none of us need to be convinced of this, is that there's just been a lot on our shoulders, and there's been a lot of burden in our hands this last year. And again, some of it's direct from what we've gone through. Much of it is the indirect result of a lot that we've gone through in the last year and a half. Even just reading some articles, I put together some statistics for you that, again, just underline this reality. One statistic says 9 out of 10 adults say that they feel an enormous amount of stress from the division in our country right now. 9 out of 10. I really want to meet the one. Like, who's that guy? He's like, man, I look around and it's just good. I'm really good. Like, I want to know that guy. 63% of adults right now say that they are facing an issue in life that they would describe as absolutely overwhelming. 63% of us. Here's what's interesting. Given the divided political season that we just went through, and now we're on the, I guess, other side-ish of it, nobody is having much different of an experience when it comes to stress. 85% of Democrats, 83% of Republicans, and 83% of independents all report feeling unusually high levels of stress and anxiety right now. All of us. And then one of the things that I thought was most sobering is that some of the highest levels of stress right now are manifesting themselves in, shouldn't be surprising, in the younger demographics and younger age around us. Which really goes right back to what we talked about last week, is that what we clothe ourselves with, do you remember this? We end up handing down to the generations around us. Particularly, we talked last week about our kids, but it's not just our kids. And we're doing that at an alarming rate right now, to the degree that it's our younger generations that are feeling the highest levels of stress, anxiety, weariness. And then I was thinking at one point about compiling a list of all the things that make up our stress, and it was just overwhelming. There's just too many of them. And like I said a minute ago, it's an endless list of what is in many of our hands, on our shoulders, overwhelming us. I did find it interesting that on several of the lists, murder hornets still made the count. I'm like, really? There's some of us honestly running around scared of murder hornets? I think it's the one guy out of the 910. It's that guy. He's like, I'm good with the country, but murder hornets. Like, maybe it's him. I don't know. So my wife, Nicole, and I, we're no different than you. On our shoulders has been all kinds of stuff, taking up real estate this last year and a half. It's been the challenge, like many of you, to figure out and navigate online school and the stress of that, and managing and trying to lead our kids through it that have just been really frustrated with it. It's been a lost season of soccer for my daughters that maybe doesn't seem like a big deal, but that is a place of community for them. It's a place of outlet for them. It's involved graduating our oldest firstborn from high school this last couple of months, and just all of the work and all the stuff that goes into that. It's involved massive life change for Nicole and I, some of which has been really good, some of which is what ultimately led us to be here and be a part of this community. So it's good, but it's still big change that we've been navigating this last year, some of which has been stressful and made us a bit weary. It's been navigating on both sides of our family, parents that have battled COVID. And I love my in-laws, love my parents, but I would just say too that they're not the healthiest individuals. They've got some issues that have made them more susceptible to some of the worst effect of it. So that was a little bit nerve-wracking. And then even recently yesterday, I was at a funeral for a family friend who passed away after 7 weeks in the hospital battling COVID. And it wasn't just any family friend. This was actually the guy and his wife who introduced my mom and dad to Jesus. And just a year after I was born. And I can tell you, changed the trajectory of our family, and we had to say goodbye to him yesterday after his battle. So like you, there are an endless list of things that I could tell you have just made up stuff. Here's what I'd love you to do this morning. All of you, I think you got a pen, marker when you walked in. Would you grab that if you have that right now? I'd love you to just hold your hand out for a minute. And I want you to picture, not everything, but I'd love you to picture just in your hand for a minute, what would be the biggest thing? Like, what comes to the top of the surface for you immediately when you think of burden or something that just is creating that weariness? Like, ugh. Like, what is it? Look at your hand. I want you to see it. Here's what I'd love you to do, and this will have meaning for us throughout the morning if you'll do this with us. Would you mark something in your hand? Maybe it's a word. Maybe it's just a letter that identifies what that thing is. Maybe it's an abbreviation. Like if you're a mafia hitman, I wouldn't write, I kill people. That'd be weird if you shake a hand later, right? But maybe just, for me, it's gonna be a letter. What would that be for you? So I want you to look at it again. You know what this is. Now let's talk about what to do about it. The book of Matthew, chapter 11, Jesus gives just a very brief moment in what is the middle of a conversation that's not at all about what he kind of deviates towards for 3 verses. But it's probably one of the most quoted moments in Jesus' ministry. It's some of the most responded to verses. They're on coffee mugs and plaques in a lot of people's homes. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into it. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28, Jesus says this: "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light." 3 very short verses, but I think there is such a depth here that can easily be overlooked, maybe because it's so short, or maybe even because it's so familiar to us. Come to me, all you who are weary, and I will give you rest. So here's what's interesting, like laying some context for these verses for a moment. This is a pinnacle place in the book of Matthew. By the time you get to chapter 11, this is a place of massive change where the trajectory begins to be laid for Jesus that ultimately leads him to the cross. Up to this point, Jesus has been teaching with more and more clarity as to who he says he is, the long-awaited Messiah, the God of creation. He's also been performing miracles that you can't explain any other way than the moves and the acts of God. And so he's at a point between his teachings and his miracles where it's getting increasingly more difficult to deny that he is who he says he is, and yet many people are. And many people are doing so even very aggressively denying that he is. This is the point in the book of Matthew where some of the strongest rejection of Jesus' claims to be the Messiah start to emerge. Thus, the trajectory that begins to be laid that ultimately leads him to the cross. So, it's not, I think, of coincidence then that in the middle of all of that, late nights, a heavy workload, personal rejection, that this is where Jesus takes a moment and pauses in the middle of a conversation very different than he was having just a minute ago and wants to talk about weariness and burdens and rest. And what he says in its simplest form is, if you want to make an intentional move from one place to the other, from burdens to rest, from weariness to rest, he says, here's what you got to do. Come to me. So there you go. Matter solved. If you're stressful, go to Jesus. That's it. All right, service is over. You don't have to go home, but can't stay here, right? Go. Like that. Like, what do you do though? Like, how do you just go to Jesus? Here's what I believe about this book. I believe it is the inspired word of God. That as I prayed a minute ago, God wants to breathe this into the experiences, the humanity of the human authors, their personal experiences with him, even some without him, but he breathed this through them into these pages. I believe that because of that, everything in here and everything it says is what it says of itself. It is good, it is useful for teaching, correcting, even rebuking, training, leading, but sometimes to understand how, you gotta dig a little bit. And as you dig a little bit in this particular place, there's a word here. When Jesus says, come to me, here's one of the problems when we have the English translation of the Greek language. Greek and Hebrew particularly were much more poetic languages. So they were very difficult languages to take one word and translate into one word. That's why in the Hebrew language, for example, the word love has multiple words, as does the Greek. For us, we just have one word, love. You say things like, I love you, and I love pizza, and it just doesn't do justice to the word because it's so shortened. This is one of those words when he says, come to me. The word is echemai. And here's partly what it means, and at the surface, and it's how we translate it to the word come, it means an intentional choice to move from one place to another. Probably not a big surprise, right? If he's saying come to me, we would all assume that there's some intentionality to go, okay, I'm here, I'm gonna move here. But here's where the word gets some depth, is that the more you understand echemai and the depth of this Greek word, it's not a word of a one and done decision. It's a word of motion. In other words, a better, fuller translation would lead us to understand that echemai means to start a journey, to embark on a journey. Again, in other words, it's not a decision or a word of completion, but movement. So what Jesus is saying is, here's where rest is. It's not just come to me, it's move with me, journey with me. Learn the rhythms of life that are me and my grace, and in that you will learn rest. Here's one of the reasons why I think sometimes we don't understand this verse or this invitation of Jesus, because he says, come to me, and we're like, I did, I prayed, I said, Jesus, take this burden off of me, and it's not gone yet. Well, that's not what he meant. He meant, I want you to come and walk with me, journey with me. When you do life with me, you will start to learn my rhythm of life, but you've got to be in constant motion with me. But here's the problem. When we're weary, Jesus isn't the only voice that says, echemai. Netflix does. Jack Daniels does. Pornography does. Shopping does. Xbox does. Old habits do. Old relationships do. There is no end to the voices in our world and in our lives that, listen to me, lie to us and beckon us to come and find rest. And they don't offer it. And when we are weary, we have a habit of responding often to the wrong voice. In 1930, August 6th, there was a story of a 41-year-old man named Joseph Crater. Became today the most famous missing person story ever. He was a New York Supreme Court judge. Had dinner one night with a group of friends at a high-end restaurant, had a great time, no indication that anything was wrong, finished the meal, hailed a cab, and drove off. Never seen again. Because of his status, particularly as a judge, it became national news. Even in 1930, when we didn't have the ability to share news as quickly as we do now, it spread everywhere. Massive search, all kinds of theories, all kinds of rumors, all kinds of speculation, everything from he ran off with a mistress to he was murdered to kidnapped. Even the mafia was investigated as possibly being involved at one point. His office was searched relentlessly, his home was searched relentlessly, and there was literally nothing they could ever find that gave any indication of what happened to him. So 3 weeks after his house was torn apart and searched, a letter mysteriously appeared at his home, addressed to his wife, and in that letter was a check for $6,000 in cash, or a cash of $6,000, I think insurance bonds for thousands and thousands more, and then there was just a simple note to her. And this is what it read: I am very weary. Love, Joe. And that was it. And so over time, there's been all kinds of rumor and theory and investigation to figure out what happened, from, like I said, from kidnappings to running away to what was it to maybe it was even just simply a man with so much on his shoulders that he didn't know what to do anymore, and he ran away. And even to this point in history, there are probably more concrete ideas of what happened to him, but there's still not 100% knowledge and awareness of where he went. But here's what I thought of when I heard the story. There is 100% awareness of what he lost by listening to the wrong voice. Everything. His family, all he had worked for, everything, because he listened to the wrong voice. My question for us is, when we're weary, what voice do we listen to? Because there's a lot of voices that whisper to us, Erchamai. And Jesus will never fight over all of them. He will never try to, even often, I have an experience in my life, try to be louder. But he will be consistent. Come to me. And his promise is, when you come to me, I will give. But you go anywhere else, and it will take. So how? How do we go to him with this? Like in a practical sense. Susan Welsh, who's our campus director, she asked me this morning, we were sitting out in the lobby, she said, hey, how are you feeling about today's message? And without pause, I said, like a hypocrite. Because I believe this. I believe this invitation. I've experienced this invitation. But I am really struggling to give what I know this is over to Jesus right now. I am really wearing this burden on my shoulders and holding it in my hand. And I feel the effect of it. But I am hearing Jesus whisper to me again and again, Erchamai, Erchamai, come to me, and there you will find rest. So I want to give you a couple of things that they are not me telling you what to do. They're me telling me what I need to do. And maybe for you, they'll be helpful to you along the way. And we could sit a little bit deeper in just Matthew's passage with Jesus in this moment. But one of the beauties of the Bible, because it is the inspired word of God, is that the Bible at times has the ability to teach itself. And so I'm going to take you to a place in a book called Psalm, where the author David, if you know anything about the life of David, is definitely a man who was very familiar with grief, pain, sorrow, burdens, as the king of a nation, as a father who lost a son, as a man with enormous moral failures. He is a guy that knew deeply broken, burdensome moments. And I think he lends to us in a couple of verses what can be some of the intentional process of you and I stepping into to genuinely begin to move towards Jesus and find his rest. Let me read the 8 verses and then break them down. Verse 1 of chapter 121 in Psalm. I lift my eyes to the mountains, and where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, He who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm, and he will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forevermore. So remember, I said you got to dig sometimes. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to break down a few verses, and we're going to dig. Verse 1. Let's go back to verse 1. This is what he said. I will lift my eyes to the mountains. Where does my help come from? All right, step number 1. Because this is me. I have to be practical. You're going to read this. I don't think God wanted it to just be ethereal. I think he wants it to be practical for us. Like, what do we do with this? So here's step number 1 that I'm trying to apply to myself right now is when you have burden, when you have stress, when you see this, step number 1, lift up your head to the heavens. That's what David said. Lift your head up to the heavens. Think about this. When you're overwhelmed and burdensome, where do your eyes tend to go first? Down, right? If not literally looking at the problem, like just down. Like when we're overwhelmed, our whole posture begins to do this. Our back hunches over, our face looks down, our eyes look down. Like nobody walks around, like when you're walking around like eyes up, you're joyful. The opposite is you're doing this. Like when you're burdensome, everything seems to go down. What David says is here's what your first step should be. Look up. Why? Because there's power in where you put your focus. Never forget in high school, in 11th grade, I was in this woodshop class, and we had a senior who was like the woodshop like student instructor. So we had this bandsaw he was trying to teach us how to use one day. And if you're not familiar with a bandsaw, it's a continually moving blade. And so a lot of times as you're making these intricate cuts that you can do on a bandsaw, little pieces of wood would come off and they would just start to kind of shake. They get caught in this little space in between the bandsaw and the guard. And so what you have to do is you got to shut the whole bandsaw off, wait for it to stop moving, then you got to move the wood and turn the bandsaw back on. So the senior, he got a little bit of a smart aleck in him, and he decided, and we watched him do it dozens of times, that he would just flick this piece of wood out of the way. And so he'd do it all the time. He'd like, boom, there goes the wood. And so this one particular time, there's a group around us. He's showing us how to do this one cut, like make all these turns and bends. And sure enough, there's this little piece of wood, and he's talking and showing off, and he's not looking, and he does this and flick. And he took off the whole tip of his finger right there, just right on the saw. And here's why I tell you that, because sometimes I wonder if we aren't literally hurting ourselves because our focus is in the wrong place. Because our focus is here. David says, here. And we're like, no, here. David goes, no. I lift my eyes up to the heavens. In another place in the Bible, in the book of Hebrews, it says, fix your eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith. Fix. That means focus. That means lock. Even in Colossians, where we have been gaining this whole idea of the series from, chapter 3, clothe yourselves. Look at this, chapter 3, right back there, verse 1, where Paul starts before he gets to the clothe yourself. Look what he says. Chapter 3, verse 2. Set your minds on things where? Say it. Above, not on earthly things. This is literally what he's saying. Part of the first move, when you're just looking at this, is to get your eyes off of the burden and put them on the burden lifter. I put my eyes to the heavens. Do this with me. Put your hand out, look at it. You see it? Now just humor me. Just pick your head up and look up. It starts to change something, even in just that simple move. Because I think sometimes the posture of our physical body can begin to change the posture of our soul. And Jesus' invitation is, when you're looking at this, get your eyes up and look at me, not the burden, but the burden lifter. Step number 1. Step number 2. This one is going to make me sound a little schizophrenic. You ready? Look at your hand. You're like, what? You just said don't look at your hand. Look at your other hand without the mark. Because we don't want to just look and see what's there. Here's what we want to look and see. What's not there. Watch this. Let me take you back here again to Psalms, verse 2. My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. All right, watch this. Let me take you over to another passage, Isaiah. This is what's in his hand, not in ours. Verse 12 of chapter 40. Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, or with the breadth of his hand marked out the heavens? Who has held the dust of the earth in a basket or weighed the mountains on scales and the hills in a balance? Verse 25, to whom will you compare me? Who is my equal, says the Lord, the Holy One. Lift up your eyes and look to the heavens. Who created these? He who brings out the starry hosts one by one and calls forth each of them by name because of his great power and mighty strength. Not one of them is missing. This won't be on your screen, but I'm going to give it to you anyways. But down in verse 29, it says this in conclusion, he gives strength to the weary and increases the power of the weak. See, first you've got to lift your head up from the problem to look at the problem solver. But then look at your hands again and remember not just the burden that's in them, more importantly, what's not in them. Here's what's not in them. The universe, not in your hands. They are in his. And I don't think it's a mistake that in both of these places, particularly in Isaiah, God attaches the idea of what fits in his hands to our rest. To remind us, listen, stop focusing on the strength you don't have to change things and start focusing on the strength that I have to change everything. Put your ideas on my strength. Put your eyes on my strength. Put your focus on my strength. And here's what can begin to happen as well. When you look and remind yourself that the universe isn't in your hands, guess what else isn't in your hands? Holes. The holes that bear evidence to the cross and the nails that once held Jesus. Holes that bear evidence to the fact that the only thing that matches his power is his compassion. Holes that remind us, hands that remind us, hands that hold the universe and hands that have the holes of the cross that remind us that he has both the strength to help us and the desire to help us. And he says, look to the power in my hands, not yours. There's this song, what's his name? Jonathan Sherman. He sings a song based off of Psalm 23. And there's this line in the song, my wife and I have been listening to this song for a while. It says, he always guides me. So I sent this to my wife, I think this was like 2 years ago, or whatever it was when I first found it. I was like, this song is amazing. So I sent it to her on a Sunday morning, like, you gotta listen to this on the way to church. So she puts it on, she's listening to it the whole way to church. But the way he sings at one point, he says, he always guides me, is that my wife misunderstood guides and thought it was gots. And so the whole way to church, she's singing, he always gots me, he always got. And at one point, my kids, they tell a story, they're all in the car going, I don't think you're singing that right, Mom. And so she gets there, she's like, the kids are telling me it's not, he always guides me. I'm like, it's not, babe, he always guides me. It was just super funny because she was an English major in college and always makes fun of my grammar. So I was like, ha! Like, listen better. But so that became a joke in our home. Like whenever there was a moment of stress, we would be like, hey, he always gots you. And we would just sing that to her and she's like, oh, knock it off. But that's like part of what I think he's trying to say to us in this moment where he says, I have it all in my hand. And he's saying, guess what else I have in my hand? You. He always got you. He always got you. And he's got whatever this is too. He's got it. And he's got you. All right, step number 3. Go back to the passage in Psalms. This is how he ended in the last several verses. He says, first, pick your head up, remember his power. And then he says, he will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. He's always awake. Even when you're not, he's watching. And he says, indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber or sleep. The Lord watches over you. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun will not harm you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all harm, and he will watch over your life. The Lord will watch over your coming and your going, both now and forever. Here's the third thing that we're going to do is we're going to wait with expectation. Wait with expectation. Why? So that we would get our focus off of what if and put it onto who can. This draws all kinds of what ifs from us. That's where half our anxiety comes from. That's where half our stress comes from. At least for me it is. Well, what if this and what if that? And then if this doesn't and if that does. And we've got to wait on Jesus to do what he says he will do, the one who watches over, who will not let your foot slip. I don't know what his timing will be. I don't know what his answer will be, but I know what his outcome will be. He will watch you. He will guide you. He will protect you. He will not let your foot slip. So we wait with expectation. And don't let ourselves get caught up in the what if. Instead, we get caught up in the who can. If this really is our God who says, I'm watching even as you sleep, even as you're restless at night, I watch over you. And he says, so give it to me, then give it to him. Then give it over to him. And I know that's not an easier thing to do than to say. It's easier to say. But sometimes that's because we don't take the force to actually push this stuff out of our minds and out of our thoughts. As a matter of fact, let me give you one more verse in Psalm. Chapter 55, verse 22. This is another time David wrote about what we do with stress and anxiety. Again, another time that probably is going to be common to many of us. Cast your cares on the Lord and he will sustain you. He will never let the righteous be shaken. Again, doing a little digging, cast, Hebrew word, it literally means in a fuller translation to forcibly, violently evict. So he's not saying, just come to me and offer a simple prayer. He's saying you need to fight at times to say, this will not dominate my thinking. And you need to cast it out with force and aggression, and at times even an internal effort of violence to say, you don't belong here. This is not my burden to bear. I give it to the burden bearer. And hear me too, I never would want you to feel like I'm trying to downplay what's taking real estate on your shoulders or in your hand. The weight of life. I'm just becoming more convinced that for myself, and I have to believe this is probably true for many of us, that so much of the burden and the weariness in our lives is a result of what we have chosen to put on, that we could equally choose to give up and take off and learn from Jesus a different rhythm of life as we journey with him. I want you to see that verse again, Matthew 11. Jesus said it very clearly. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. Learn from me. So he's not saying if you come to me, it's just a one and done. It's gone. Remember, erchomai, it's a journey. What he's saying is, but I will teach you. I will teach you over time how to not be in this place. I will teach you how to be in a different place. I will teach you how to move in the rhythm of grace and harmony and peace that is my rhythm. I will teach it to you. I want to show you a picture and then tell you a really quick story. So this is a picture of my son. I believe this is the first year I ever put him on a snowboard. And he towers over me now by about 18 feet. It's ridiculous. But the very first time I put him on a snowboard and we started kind of learning how to go down at Mount Holly, and I'll never forget that first year. It was just boom, 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 front edge, back edge, down, down. And so second year, we go through the whole summer and the spring, we're back on the snow again, and here we are, let's try it again. It was like starting from scratch, and he's just down, 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 getting super, super frustrating. My son is a bit of a emotional kid at times, so he's just not having it. He's getting really mad. And I was failing in that moment to figure out how to tell him what to do. And he just wasn't catching it as I gave him the instruction. No, told him this week, it's heel and toe, son, not turn, it's heel and toe. But he wasn't getting my instructions. So I had this moment of epiphany where I thought, all right, he's not getting it from me verbally. Here's what I'm gonna do. I said, all right, I got this idea. Come here. So he comes over and I said, stand in front of me. So I'm on my board and he's on his board and he was small enough, clearly that I could still do this. And I put my arms under his arms and I wrapped them around his chest. And I said, all right, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull you into me and we're gonna go down the hill. And I said, and don't fight me. So whatever I do, you do. So I pulled him in and we just started going and we go heel, toe, heel. I felt him a couple times start to fight me. I'm like, no, just feel me move. Where I move, you move. When I rock, you rock. Heel, toe, heel. And eventually we get to the bottom and he's like, Dad, that was awesome. And so then we go back up. I am not kidding you. Very next run, he went on his own. Whole way down, heel, toe, heel, toe. And he's not gonna be in church today, so I'll admit this. I wouldn't if he was here. He's a better snowboarder than I am now. And I love watching him the last number of years teach other people. And I actually caught him once with a friend of his standing behind him, holding his shoulders, going, just do what I do. If I lean back, lean back. If I lean forward, lean forward. That's the invitation of Jesus when he says, erchomai. He's not saying just come and offer a prayer to me and ask me to take this off your shoulders. He's saying, come to me, lean into me. And if I rock, you rock. Don't fight me. If I move, you move. If I lean, you lean. And I will teach you my rhythm. And in my rhythm is rest. So here's what I want us to do this morning with this, is I want us to lay it down. And here's how I want us to do that. The power of the ability to lay it down is only because of the power of this cross. Because of the power of what happened when Jesus breathed his last on that piece of wood. And so we're going to end with communion in a few songs this morning. And here's what I want to do. When I walk off the stage, I'm going to give you the opportunity to come up. But before you take communion, here's what I want you to do. I would invite you to walk up to the stage. Just the stage is nothing more than just a stage. But I want you to let it be symbolic of something more this morning. I want it to be symbolic of a place where you come mentally and emotionally to say, Jesus, I'm going to lay this down to you. And here's one of the powers of doing this. Psalms 46:10. Some of you will know this verse. Psalms 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. Now, again, digging, here's what that word still in the Hebrew actually means. I love this. It says to relax and lay down the hand. Be still and know that I am God. Isn't it interesting that when God says part of knowing me is in being still, and this idea of being still in its fullest version of understanding means relax your hand and let it down. So here's what I want us to do this morning as we come up here. Before you grab communion, I want you to first walk up to the stage, and I want you to just have a moment symbolically to say, all right, Jesus, I'm gonna relax my hand and I'm gonna lay it down. And then I want you to go here, and I want you to take your communion cup. And I want you to take it back to your seat, and when your moment is right, so it won't be an all take it together at the same time, but when it's the right moment for you that you know, I want to celebrate what he did for me on that cross that gives me the power to do this. Then you take this. To help with some of the crowd management, if you could do this favor, when you come down the aisles on the far other side, come around, back up these two aisles in the middle, just to kind of keep with traffic. But maybe you're not ready to come right away. Maybe you need a minute. There's a few songs. But I would encourage you during this opening song that we're going to do, Lay It Down, that you do that. And again, here's the thing. Guess what's going to happen later today? You're going to walk out of here after you lay it down. You're going to go home this afternoon, and you're going to pick it back up. And then you're going to remember, nope, lay it down. And how do you lay it down? First, I look to the heavens. I remember he holds it all. I wait expectantly, and I learn to move in the rhythms that is his life and his rest. But it starts with laying it down.
burden down. Lay it down. Lay it down. Lay it down. Every burden at the feet of Jesus. Lay it down. Lay it down. Lay it down. Oh. Lay it down. Oh, this altar is for everyone. The altar is for everyone. No one is excluded. No one is excluded. Jesus, you are so good. You are so good to us. You're breaking off addiction. Oh, you're breaking every chain. If you laid it all down for me, then I'll lay it all at your feet. Oh, if you lay it all down for me, I'll lay every burden at your feet. Oh, if you laid it all down for me, I'll lay every burden at your feet. Jesus, if you laid it all down for me, I'll lay every burden at your feet. Oh, oh, we worship you, we worship you. If the stars were made to worship, so will I. If the mountains bow in reverence, so will I. If the oceans roar your greatness, so will I. For if everything exists to lift you high, so will I. If the wind goes where you send it, so will I. If the rocks cry out in silence, so will I. If the sum of all our praises still fall shy, then we'll sing again 100 billion times. God of salvation, you chased down my heart through all of my failure and pride. Yes, you did. On a hill you created, light of the world, abandoned in darkness to die. And as you speak, 100 billion failures disappear. Where you lost your life so I could find it here. If you left the grave behind you, so will I can see your heart in everything you've done. Every part designed in a work of art called love. If you gladly chose surrender, so will I can see your heart 8 billion different ways. Every precious one, a child you died to save. If you gave your life to love them, so will I. Like you would again 100 billion times. But what measure could amount to your desire? You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind. You're the one who never leaves the one behind.
Just pray with me. Father, I just want to acknowledge that a lot of moments just happened as people touch the stage of situations that they are asking you to take. And so I pray the continued strength from everyone who did that to continue to give it to you. Because it's not a one and done, it is a journey. And so as we journey, would you continue to give us the tender reminder that you are the one who holds all things in his hand, including, as Isaiah reminds us, that when we place our faith in you, our very name is inscribed in your hand. We are in your hand. Keep us mindful of that, I pray, and give us grace over all the things we laid before you this morning as we go into our week. Amen. Hey, can I get just one more minute from you this morning? I want to share something. If you can kind of take a minute here, go ahead, take a seat really quick. I want to share a really exciting, but also kind of a sad moment for us as a community. So Michael, Elizabeth, for those who don't know, this is Michael and his wife, Elizabeth. Michael works with our high school students. Edge oversees our whole student ministry program here at Orion, and has some exciting and sad news to share with us. So with that set up,
So I've been here for 13 years. When I walked into the high school 13 years ago, I was like, what is this place? I'd never been to a place like Kensington before, never heard people talk about wanting to go after the people that were left to the sides. And it was funny, after I came on staff, like right after I came on staff, which was probably like 2 months before we launched in the high school in 2008, I told people I knew, I was like, I'm only gonna be here for like 2 years. That was back when I had the curly hair. You guys remember that? Yeah, the afro for those of you back in the day. So I didn't think I was gonna be here for that long. And over the last 13 years, man, you guys have been such a family to me, and a family to Elizabeth as well. And some of you know this, if you have students in our program, you got the email a couple of weeks ago that at the end of August, we are gonna be stepping out of student ministries. I'm gonna be stepping out of my position so that we can go and step into a couple of things, one of which will be church planning. We have this vision. We've had it actually since we first started dating, and this idea of starting some kind of grassroots movement to continue to reach the people who have, I wrote it down a couple of weeks ago. Craig had us all spend some time thinking and asking God, well, what do you call us to? And in that time, this is what I heard. He said, I call you to love those who are precious to me, and don't think they're worthy of my love, and tell them that I love them with an unquenchable love that cannot be doused. Who? The outcasts, the cast out, and those who have left, and helpers will be gathered along the way. And that's been the language I've been using for a couple of weeks now, but we've been talking about this for a long time. So we're excited to see what God has for us. And there's a couple of other ventures. We're going to be doing some stuff with the local school districts and also working with House of Hope. But I just want to say thank you to you. I'm still going to be around here this summer, but I want to say thank you to you for being my family over all these years. Some of you, I invited myself over your house a couple of years ago, and I just haven't stopped coming over. Just kind of how it was. And do you want to say anything? Okay.
I just want to say that Kensington has been a home for me. I've met some really close friends who I call family, and this is a place where I actually found the Lord, and we met here, so that's pretty awesome.
Right over there.
Working in the kids area, he was, and I was volunteering. But anyways, this place has been an amazing journey for me, and it's where I started my journey with the Lord, really seeking him and finding a relationship with him. But in that, I realized how much more meaningful life is when you invite people into it, and family, friends that I've met here. I wouldn't trade any of this time for anything in the world. So thank you. Thank you for accepting us and loving us well. And I just hope that we continue to love each other through this next journey in our lives together.
Yeah, so we're still here. We're still local. We're not moving out of our house because we're afraid we probably won't be able to buy one if we do. But if you want to keep tabs on us, I mean, we're still going to be out. You can catch us out in the lobby afterwards. But if you want to keep tabs on us, we actually set up a website so you can keep track with what we're doing, or maybe some of you might want to, support in other ways. You can go to, I don't know if they've got it up, there's a bluenoteministries.org. That's not the name of what our church plan is going to be. That's just a fundraising place. But we've cast a little bit of vision there for what some of our next steps are. So if you'd like to jump on our newsletter or something else, go ahead and save that, bookmark that, and then we'll catch you guys out in the lobby afterwards. Thanks, Craig.
Awesome. I got one. I brought my own. So I just want to stay here. I want to pray for you guys before you walk off. I just wanted to let you guys know it's a big transition. Those of you, like he said, that have already got the letter, you knew. But you two are such an important part of our community just for who you are. But obviously for what you do, I mean, leading our high school students and that whole student ministry, I wanted you to know because that's such a critical part of what it means for us to be and to do who we're supposed to be and do what we're supposed to do. You got massive shoes to fill. Our student ministry is one of the most important things that we do. So be in prayer for us as we start a search to find who's going to step in behind you. But I just wanted you to hear that because this is one of those moments where doing what God calls us to do is both exciting and sad. But this is what he's called us to do, to go, to be those willing to follow after the one because Jesus did it. So Jesus, I want to pray for my friends, Michael and Elizabeth, and just ask your tremendous blessing over them in the days ahead where fear will tempt them, where desire to run backwards will tempt them. Would you continue to be the greater invitation to move forward, to trust them, to be obedient to you and all that you've called them to be? With those simple words that you spoke to Michael that he wrote down, continue to grow in their power and influence over him and what it is that you have shaped him and Elizabeth to be in this next season of their life. You have invested in them. You have wrung them out here at Kensington to our benefit, and you will continue to do so in the days ahead. I pray, God, that you would pave the way and continue to invite them in this journey to trust you, to follow you, and to learn the rhythm of what it means to walk with you and to love those you love. In Christ's name, amen. Would you just thank them as they walk off? And to all of you, thank you for being with us for the day. Have an amazing rest of the week, and we'll see you next Sunday.
you.